Hey everyone, Chris Mack coming at you with an action figure that I've literally been wanting to do for years now, and I just kept putting aside. But now, today, we are going over the Marvel Legends Professor Xavier Hover Chair Shadow King Deluxe action figure. If you guys want to pick this up at the time of this recording, it is available on Amazon. It is a little pricey, but definitely worth it. Love the X-Men logo there. See all the awesome stuff this figure comes with. The great varnish logo here on top. Love the artist rendition of Xavier here on the side. If you guys could clue me in on who this artist was, love that artwork there. On the back, very cool product shot of Xavier in the kind of faux cerebro room. There's a read-up. I'll make sure to get a close-up so you guys can check it out at your convenience. Here's a cool way that they displayed all the accessories that come with this figure. Again, same awesome shot on the side. Nothing really on the bottom. So with all this gushing that I'm doing, is this figure worth picking up? Let's crack it open and check it out. Since this deluxe figure comes with a lot of accessories, let's dive into them first. Right off the bat, he comes with this really cool Shadow King head, which I wish they would have made him a deluxe figure in and of himself, because what a lot of people have having to do is take the Build-A-Figure Kingpin and add the body that way, or the retro version that came carded and put it on that way, and then adding the Venom hands to it, which looks cool, but it's just frustrating that Hasbro is essentially saying, guess what, you gotta spend more money, instead of just giving us a deluxe figure like Apocalypse or something. But nonetheless, to have the Shadow King's head, what was his real name, Maruk Farak or something like that? Let me know down in the comments. I can't remember off the top of my head, but to have that, it's a nice little addition, and it just looks absolutely terrifying, especially considering what the Shadow King has done to Storm, Xavier, Psylocke, all sorts of nasty stuff. So just to have that included, very cool piece. Now for Xavier himself, he comes with a Cerebro helmet, which I think is really cool. Has that nice dark gunmetal gray, and it goes on relatively well. I mean, you gotta be careful for the little wires there, but you just take them. And I've been doing this on and off for the last few years, and I've yet to scuff the paint, so I wouldn't worry too much. The downfall is like if you try to put this like on Deadpool's head, it doesn't fit quite as well. But using your imagination and some tricks work. So you get the Cerebro helmet, which is neat. I kind of wish that Hasbro would kind of get where NECA and McFarlane are, where they're releasing more vehicles. It'd be kind of neat to have like a Cerebro room or like a Danger Room where this would be more apt to pose. That would be cool. Now, on the back, there's a hole for his telepathy ability. Yeah, that's a bad color choice. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm not even going to go any further. But, snap it on. It pops in relatively easy. And it looks kind of like he's using his abilities. Anyway, if you use like any type of lighting, you can change that to pink. I did that with Karma. So you have that ability, but that just looks... Yeah, anyway. So that's the Cerebro helmet. So that's cool. Now for the wheelchair, or should I say the hover chair, whatever you want to call it. Now remember, up until the 90s, Xavier always just had a regular wheelchair or walked and always got paralyzed again, which was ridiculous. It wasn't until Jim Lee, Chris Claremont's 1990s run where he finally got the hover chair that we saw in the animated series, etc., so forth. And it comes with this cool little like air effect for the bottom that you could pose them on, which doesn't look too bad. I mean, the whites, I wish they would have made it more translucent. That would have been nice, but nonetheless, we'll get into that in a second. Let's put this bad boy together. So this is the back seat. Comes with a half blanket, which is kind of cool. We'll explain that in a minute. So let me tilt up so you can see what's going on here. Have this slat here. Take the back, take the slat. Work it in. Then you take the other side of the chair, which has a hole. Find which way the pillow or the cushion veers down for his tuchus. Fit it right into the hole. And then you just sort of port everything together to make sure everything fits. Give it a nice snug tap. Cool beans, there's the chair. Love it. Gold is great. I love all the little details. The one thing that I particularly love about this is it's a nod to the old Toy Biz figure and the cartoon. I don't really remember if in the comics he ever used any controls in his chair, but on the old one, it would flap open. This one just slides, so you get like a cool button which could activate like either the Blackbird or the Danger Room. Open the other side. It would have been cool if they would have given like some sort of like LCD cool 90s retro thing there. That would have been cool. But what I like, unlike the original Toy Biz Xavier figure that was just pinned into the, he was built directly into the chair, as you can see. That was frustrating, but still a cool piece. I'm glad that they gave this one the ability to walk and or sit, so you just lift up the arms. Slide old Chuck in there any way you want. Bend that arm. Then you take the pillow. Again, kind of self-explanatory. It just fits down around his waist. So you got the, what do they call, I don't know what you call that, just a blanket, pillow, whatever you want to call it. And you can fit him in there however you want. He sits relatively well. And then the hole on the bottom goes for the little poof thing. And it lifts him up kind of high, but still looks great. I mean, that is one awesome deluxe figure. I'm glad that Hasbro gave this to us. Because whether if you were the animated series fan or a longtime comic reader like myself, this piece is great. And yeah, you can kind of see the split in the back. But you have to let that go because you have to kind of put everything together. And thankfully, it's not super complicated. And it just looks great. So you can either put him in his chair or stand him up however you want to pose your action figure. It's your figure! So I can't complain on the way this thing is put together. That chair looks absolutely amazing and looks both animated series and comic accurate. And anytime you see him in this chair, you're going to get that old school awesomeness. And it's kind of a shame that in later iterations, they kind of just put him back in a regular wheelchair. I don't know. I just kind of feel like this gave him an edge when they finally introduced this. It just gave an attitude that was the 90s. So yeah, this looks beautiful. All those golds. And Chuck just looks so cool. You put Cerebro on him like so, and we're not going to talk about the effect. And it just looks awesome. And then there's nowhere else really to put the Shadow King. So, I mean, if you want to display it, you can look like Chuck actually ripped the Shadow King's head off or something. But very cool accessories overall. And then you open these up. And sadly, unlike the Ghost Rider, like the Cosmic Ghost Rider, where you can kind of adjust them on a ball joint down here, the wheelchair doesn't really do that. So it's a little frustrating, but it looks nice down there. I prefer myself when I'm doing figure photography to just get rid of it. Without it, it balances relatively well on its own. So, I mean, your choice on how you want it to look. I just like this one because without this, he hovers above his students. So this way you can at least make it look like Logan or Jean is standing next to him. Great accessories. Now let's dive into Xavier himself. Professor Charles Francis Xavier was created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, first appearing in the X-Men #1 from September of 1963. Professor X is a member of Homo Superior, aka mutants, who are born with superhuman abilities. He is a powerful telepath who can read and control the minds of others. When his mutant powers manifested by the time he graduated high school, he had lost all of his hair. His stepbrother is Kane Marco, the Juggernaut, whose relationship is less than ideal. At graduate school, he meets a Scottish girl named Moira Kinross, who as we become to know as Moira McTaggart, with whom he falls in love with. The two agree to get married, but soon Xavier is drafted into the Korean War. During the war, he receives a letter from Moira telling him that she's breaking up with him, and he later discovers that Moira married her old boyfriend, Joseph McTaggart. Deeply depressed after Moira broke off their engagement without explanation, Xavier began traveling around the world as an adventurer. In Israel, he meets a man named Magnus, a Holocaust survivor who works as a volunteer at a clinic, as well as Gabriel Haller, a woman driven into a catatonic coma by the trauma she experienced. Xavier uses his mental powers to break her out of catatonia, and the two fall in love. Xavier and Magneto become good friends, although neither immediately reveals to the other that they are mutants. Eventually they do, and when they fight the Nazi Baron Wolfgang von Strucker and his Hydra agents who kidnap Gabrielle because she knows the location of their secret cache of gold, During the conflict, the two realize that their views on mutant-human relations clash. Magneto leaves Israel. Charles remains for some time, but he and Gabriel eventually separate on good terms, neither knowing that she is pregnant with his son, who grows up to become the Mutant Legion. Later, Xavier encounters an alien calling himself Lucifer, the advanced scout for an invasion by his race, and foils his plans. In retaliation, Lucifer drops a huge stone block on Xavier, crippling his legs. This is around the time Xavier begins to teach and train mutants from around the world about their gifts, starting the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters out of his family's mansion located at 1407 Graymalkin Lane, Salem Center, located in Westchester County, New York. Xavier's dream is the coexistence of mutants and humans. His first students were Scott Summers, Cyclops, Robert Drake, Iceman, Hank McCoy, Beast, Warren Worthington III, Angel, and Jean Grey, the Marvel Girl. After Xavier completes the recruiting of the original team of X-Men, they are sent into battle against Xavier's old friend, Magnus Eric Lenshear, Magneto. Later, the X-Men are captured by the sentient island Krakoa. Xavier assembles a new team to rescue them and will disregard X-Men Deadly Genesis for all intents and purposes. The new team consisted of Banshee, Colossus, Sunfire, Nightcrawler, Storm, Wolverine, and Thunderbird. After the mission, the original team, except for Cyclops, leaves the school believing they no longer belong there. Suffice it to say, from there, his history is all over the place, ranging from becoming lovers with the Shi'ar princess Lilandra, surviving an assassination attempt by Strife, inadvertently being murdered by his own son, becoming the embodiment of Magneto's malice in the form of Onslaught, being murdered by his surrogate son, and apparently abandoned his dream for peaceful coexistence and turns the living island of Krakoa into a sovereign nation for all mutants. If you'd like to know the issues I get this information from, let me know down in the description, and I'll start posting the issues down in the comments, or the descriptions, should I say. But let me know. That is essentially Professor X's history in a nutshell. And, all retcons and stuff, it goes all over the place. We've already gone over the accessories. I wish that they would have given him some extra hands, because he only comes with his telepathy hand, which Shardimus made a really good point about this being the Moira McTaggart fingers. Anyway, but he comes with this one. I wish they would have given him some fisticuff hands or something, but nonetheless, having the Cerebro hands and the effect in his chair, I feel makes up for that. Now, as for the character himself, I like that for this deluxe version, they kind of gave him his traditional suit. I know they're coming out, I think it's out yet, I'm not sure, but it's like the paramilitary uniform that he wore during the 90s, and I really think I'm going to grab that one because it'd look great in that floating chair. But the traditional look looks good. The one thing I hate whenever characters have coats or jackets, though, with Hasbro, is how when you slump the shoulders down, you get this gap. That is so frustrating, because I always have to go back and post after photography and attach those, and it's always so frustrating. So I wish that they'd figure something out with that, but I'll let that go. The coat looks good. I'm glad that at least this part's soft plastic. See how bendy this is? I wish that they would make capes. If they're not going to go the Mafex and McFarlane route, I wish they'd just make the coats, or the capes, should I say, more loose like that. It would just really help. And that green looks great. It very much reminds me of the old school Kirby days. The tie is good. Be careful, though, because it is loose, and you don't want to accidentally tear that off, so be careful with that. Of course, he's got those penny loafers going on. The brown looks good. Cuffs of the pants look great. White shirt looks good. Skin tone looks great. And I love how, I don't know if this was intentional or not, but just looking, you can see Patrick Stewart in that. Now, I'm not 100% sure on this story. Let me know if I'm wrong or if I'm correct. But when they were getting ready to create, when Bryan Singer was getting ready to do the original X-Men movies, apparently someone walked up to Patrick Stewart with an X-Men cover or comic with Xavier on it, slapped it down in front of him, and he goes, "What am I doing on a comic book cover?" And so that's how he got Patrick Stewart as Professor X, from what I understand. I could be wrong, but still a good story nonetheless. The rest of this figure, I love the crooked eyebrows. Is, supposed to be kind of like him thinking whenever he does his abilities, which I really think James McAvoy really captured that in the movies. The biggest problem I have with this figure, though, is the articulation. Not that it's like terrible in and of itself, but I've had this figure for years now. I'm finally getting around to it. That's what I mean when in my other videos, when I say backlog, I'm not kidding. But I've had to warm, and even now, before this review, I warmed this frickin' figure up. And the shoulder joint here just does not want to open up. Or if I do, that's the range. Usually you can get them out to almost a 90 degree. So that's irritating. Same with the double jointed knees, elbows. It just feels like no matter how many times I warm this figure up, it just wants to give me a hell of a time. So you just be aware of that when you're working with this figure. Head does this. Nice range there. Has a lot of play, so you can get a good range of motion there. Twisty twist. Not too bad down. Not too bad up. Legs up that far. That far. Thankfully for this figure, double jointed knees. Foot goes up, foot goes down. I do hate, though, that you can't move the foot side to side like you can with like NECA figures, so I hate that that's pretty much in place. And this peg on mine, again, I've warmed that sucker up, and it is just a pain in the ass to twist. Thigh cut. And because of the malicious Hasbro butt flap, you can't get it to go back, so you're just going to have to deal with it as it is. So, older figure, though in my opinion, still definitely holds up. I absolutely love the way this figure looks. And I definitely feel like it is an upgrade from the old Toy Biz version. Not the OG one that came out in 93, but the later years when Toy Biz still had the line. This one's not too bad. I mean, I will admit, though, the face to me looks kind of like, I'm going to totally get the name wrong, but the guy that played the Scott Snyder's Lex Luthor, Jesse Eisenberg, is that his name? I see that more, or maybe to me, this would be more of a Lex Luthor style face to me, because this newer upgraded version looks more like Charles Xavier. But I'm glad to have them both, and they both kind of complement each other's chairs really well. So we'll grab both chairs here. And I'm so glad that with the new Marvel Legends, they got rid of these stupid ball joints. Those are so ugly. It's almost as ugly as the McFarlane ball joints that he puts on his figures on the wrists. Ugh, those things are so ugly. Now, putting that aside, if you have the Toy Biz version and you just kind of want to swap it up, he does fit. And even though this one has pegs on its back to fit in this wheelchair, they are not too predominant because I've been able to put the Marvel Legends Deadpool in this chair. So, I mean, if you want to kind of go a more 1970s look, or 60s look, should I be more precise? Even though it does have the movie's X wheels in it, you at least now, if you have both of them, have some different options. And that doesn't look too bad, to be honest. I mean, look at that. You put them in there and you hide those ugly ball joints on the legs. Yeah, at least you can have two different versions of Xavier, but I definitely choose this head sculpt because that looks like the Xavier that I've known through all the eras of the comics that I've read. This one, I don't know. I feel like if I was going to do some Superman photography, this would very much be more like a younger Lex Luthor. I've not had enough coffee today, folks, so bear with me. But to have both of these in my collections and to be able to have these options, even though this is more movie accurate, still great stuff all around. I'm happy. I'm a little happy X-Men LARC collector at this moment. What do you guys think about both these figures? Now here's Professor X next to his students in all iterations and his Warlord retro-carded version where he decided to beat the crap out of the X-Men. We also have here the love triangle of Cyclops, Wolverine, and Jean. And then just to have a splash of the old school, here are the original Toys Biz Cyclops, Wolverine, and the first iteration of Professor X. And I remember when I first got this figure, I was like, I don't know. I didn't know a whole lot about the X-Men at the time. I just knew Professor X from the animated series, and now I understand his history a little bit more. I can appreciate this figure, but I wasn't too much of a fan of it when I first got it. But I love, just like with this one, they made sure to give him the secret compartments on his hover chair. awesome work there. And I just do feel like these Toy Biz figures were ahead of their time, because just to get these iterations that were relatively close to the show were great. But you can tell by the ones that I played with the most, this, of course, was my most played with one, was the yellow suited Wolverine. And sadly, I played with my toys. So at the time when they would snap, I'd ask my dad to get a bolt and screw the arms back in, which I know kills the value, but you're a kid, you want to play with your toys, you don't care. So to know that I still have my Wishes light up still worked. I got to check the battery, see if he still works or not, but his visor used to light up. And what's great for these, for me particular, is the memory of how I got these. I remember the first one I bought of this, the claws snapped, and I begged my mom to take me back to the store to get another one, which thankfully, mercifully, she did. And just good memories all around. So seeing how Hasbro has taken this line and is really pumped up. You know, I bash on a lot of like the hard plastic capes and the butt flaps, but just looking at them next to what they initially were, man, have we come a long way as collectors, and it just makes us so happy to have these more accurate versions. And just to have Xavier here next to his students in the new iterations just looks absolutely fantastic. Do you still have your old school Toy Biz ones? What do you guys plan to do with your Marvel Legends? Do you just pose them on shelves? Do you do action figure photography? Either way, we'd love to see photos. Don't mind sharing them if you wouldn't mind sharing them with us over on the socials. So aside for some frustrating articulation problems, this figure overall is awesome. This embodies everything that is Professor Charles Xavier, and I just love that they decided to use the Shi'ar technology, because this chair didn't come around until the 90s. But nonetheless, just seeing it here, having all these different effects, and kind of keeping that flapping open arm remote controls, that is cool. And also the fact that you can actually take him out of his hover chair compared to the old Toy Biz one where he's stuck. This is a must-have if you are a huge X-Men fan, and I've been reading them for years and years. And so I have this in my collection. I'm absolutely happy. I mean, the price has gone up over the years, but if you have enjoyed what you've seen, please first and foremost support your local comic shop and see if you can find anywhere that might have it, or the places that we talked about at the beginning of the review. If you've enjoyed the review, really would appreciate if you take a moment to hit like, share, and subscribe. Helps the channel more than you could possibly know. And if you don't mind hitting that fancy little X bell next, subscribe. That way I can upload content. You guys get notified. Come to the channel, and I love talking with y'all and hearing your thoughts and feedback down in the comments or the socials, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, hope y'all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading. Photo slideshow coming up next, and happy hunting, everyone.